Today on the Worldview, we're going to talk about measles. We're going to talk about what they call a central route rather than going through the Red Sea. And we're also going to talk a little bit about third-party voting. Among other things, today on the Worldview. So where we're going to start today is we're going to start first of all with what they call the central route. So basically, what's happened is that the Red Sea is no longer it's no longer safe. Let me show you. So basically, what happens is this is the Red Sea in here, and the ships that are going through basically go through the Suez Canal. They come down through here, and what's happening is when they get to this point here, right about this area, they're getting just blasted with whatever, missiles, whatever from the Houthi rebels from Yemen in this area in here. So what's happening is that nobody wants to go through this area, is because they're getting, there was a fertilizer ship that just sunk in this area. So a lot of issues. So there's only a few ways they can do. They can, and this is where it tends to be a problem, is they have to go basically from the Med, instead of going through here, they have to go all the way around, what they call the Cape of Good Hope, all the way around here, and then back up. Now what happens is that this presents some problems. The first problem is the distance involved, right, because you're using up more fuel. The second thing that it involves is, of course, more carbon into the air, right, more carbon dioxide into the air, more polycarbons, all these things that are happening because of the fuel from the ships. So that's all coming in that area. So there's a problem. So what they're thinking about doing, and this is interesting, is what they call a central route. Now what happens is, instead of going through the Red Sea, they would go through the Black Sea. So what happened is they go through the Black Sea, and then they would pick up whatever rivers they could pick up, go through this. This is called the Caspian Sea in here. Now this is landlocked. It's a sea, right? But it's totally landlocked. So this is landlocked in this area, and they have to try to find some rivers or whatever else to get down through here. Now you don't want to go through here because this is Iran, this is the Persian Gulf. This is a real problem in this area. Iran has all kind of missiles and everything else, and they had all kind of problems with Iran harassing ships in this area. Had one sink in the Gulf of Oman. So there's some problems there. So they'd have to find some way of going all the way through, finding rivers, a river area, to go all the way through, down through here, and then out this area, and then down through, and then down through, just as if they were going through the Suez Canal, right? Except instead of going around this way, they're going to try to go around this way, what they call a central route. real issues, right? But it's interesting to note, because when you sit back and you say, okay, this is what we have, what do, right? So, and what it's going to take is, it splits North and East Africa right from Yemen, and that's a problem with being able to move shipping through that area, right? So I wanted to show you, Vox has this great, fantastic, it really is a good visualization of the shipping routes and what it entails. This is just tremendous. I mean, the people who made this data up, who compiled this data and who got it together and everything else, they had to get an award. This is just amazing, absolutely amazing. So it shows all the different types of containers. It talks about CO2 that's emitted from people, or from the ships. It's amazing, right? But it does show some of these areas. Look, you have what they call, you go through the Black Sea. If you get through this area, there's a river that, there it is. It goes through the Caspian Sea. So you can get to the Caspian Sea, and then you can see that there's some rivers. The problem is they're not all together, except this one, which goes through the Persian Gulf, that's a bad situation. So you have this one. That's also a a problem because that's just like not even, I mean, the river just stops and then it picks up here and then it stops again, then it picks up here. So you don't have any real rivers until you get into this area right here, right around the Pakistani area. So there's some problems here. There's no rivers that really connect so that you could figure out a nice solid central route. So that presents a real problem for trying to figure out the route. You have part of it here. Now the problem is you're going to have to go Black Sea. You're going to have to go through here's the Crimean Peninsula right here, right? So that's controlled by the Russians. So now you got to pay them or do whatever to get just to this river, and then you got to go through here and then try to figure out how you're going to get from here to here, So it goes round and round and round and round and round. But there are shipping through these rivers, and you see that they go through all the way to St. Petersburg, right? So they go through those areas, and I mean, so you got the North Sea in this area, and you're trying to go through here, which is a lot of shipping in here, so that's fine. So can you see the problems that can exist with trying to find out another route? There is no other route. I mean, you can try, but there's just no way of doing it without having a real problem. And there's the Bosporus Straits right in here. And I mean, one good bomb and you got yourself the Bosporus nothing. So there's a problem there. So I mean, it's really an issue. And there's a lot of shipping through the Red Sea. So you can see that there's really, really a lot of problems here with trying to figure out another route, and it's just that type of thing, right? Problem. This goes all the way through. You can go. There's the URL right there. Just go see it. It's unbelievably fantastic. I mean, it's one of the best. It is stunning. Stunning interactive map. You betcha. I mean, it's stunning. It's really, really good. And you can filter this thing. You can put uniform colors. You can do container. You can dump that. Drive bulk. Let's just talk about tankers. Just tankers. Look at the tankers that go through here. Look at the tankers that go through here. I mean, these are liquid tankers, right? Look at this. I mean, that is a lot. So, anyways, these are fantastic sites to go to, and especially for data analysts like myself, and take a look at these types of things. It really is a great thing to look at. Okay, let's move to cough sound detection. So, African News came out with an article, and the article talked about cough sound detection and diagnosis. So, basically, what happens is, I guess TB has a specific type of cough that turns up in the spectrum. So what happens is you can take that sound and you can use diagnosis using artificial intelligence to try to diagnose whether that's a TB cough or just some other type of cough. So this is, a study done by the National Library of Medicine for the National Institute of Health, NIH, in the United States. So it's really, and it's interesting how this was done, right? 2021, it's published, but they're putting this stuff into practice in 2024, which is really good. So I think these types of things will hopefully help. Now, this is where AI, I'm not a big proponent of AI at all. Don't like it, never have liked it. But for something like this, when AI can be used to try to diagnose something without having to do a TB test or something like that, that really does help that area. So it's reliably used by AI algorithms to detect and diagnose different types of known disease, including pneumonia, pulmonary edema, asthma, tuberculosis, COVID-19, pertussis, and other respiratory diseases. It's great through cough samples. In other words, it's what they call, it's non-intrusive. Right? You don't have an intrusive technique. You don't have to stick something in them. You don't have to put something. You just have them cough into a mic, and that mic will be sensitive enough to pick up the differences in sound spectrum. Pretty cool. Something that I think it will help, especially those people that have respiratory type illnesses, and that will help them in the long run. So this is great. Okay, so let's stay with the medical, and let's go to this Sri Lanka. This is 2019. Sri Lanka eliminates measles. Done, right? The World Health Organization announced Sri Lanka has eliminated measles, interrupting transmission of indigenous virus cause killer. Sri Lanka's achievement comes at a time when globally measles cases are increasing. The country is this and that. It's fantastic. It's great. It's this is super. Yeah, let's all clap and do whatever. Here we go. So January 4th, 2024, UNICEF together with WHO will support the Ministry of Health and supplemental measles immunization activity in Sri Lanka aimed at controlling the ongoing measles outbreak. 700 measles cases reported in the country since May 2023. What does this mean? And I think we need to take a longer view of this thing. Elimination of measles does not mean that measles will never come back. Elimination of measles to me means it's eliminated. I think it should be a little bit better phrased. It should be something like temporary remission of measles, something like that. You will never, ever, ever get rid of measles. It's going to be within the world. I mean, that's the way things are. I mean, it's just the way things are, and that's the way it's going to stay. So I highly, highly urge, especially the World Health Organization, to stop this. You can't sit back and say, the World Health Organization sits there and says, okay, you eliminated measles. Horse poop. It doesn't work that way. It never has worked that way, ever. TB was never eliminated. Polio is still in the system here. There's people that can get polio. I mean, just because Jonas Salk had a vaccine does not mean it eliminates anything. COVID is not going to get eliminated ever. We're also going to have it. I love the way that shingles, they talk about shingles, and they said, no problem. If you had chicken pox, then you'll never get shingles. Shingles is good and fine. All of a sudden, it's like, oh my gosh, it sits inside of you because it's a herpes simplex 3 or something. So it sits inside you. All of a sudden, bang, out comes the shingles. So you don't eliminate diseases. You may mitigate them. You may lessen them, but you can never get rid of them. They're always underneath there, always underneath. So, we have the plague. We have bubonic plague, still here. Now, we treat it, right? Leprosy, treated with antibiotics. There's a lot of things that, are not centuries, but the millennia old, and they're still around. So we have to really be careful about what we do when we say those types of things, especially with this area. All right, so what I wanted to do was I wanted to show you one more thing. Because voting is going to be a big deal here within the next 6 months or so. So I wanted to talk about third-party performance, right? Now, Statista is good. It's really good. It talks about statistics and everything else, and they are really good at what they do. So basically, what happens is you have something like this, right? 1912, Theodore Roosevelt got 27% of the vote, right? Electoral vote 16.57. George Wallace, 13.5%. Ross Perot, 18.9%. Ross Perot in 1996, interesting, 8.4%. Gary Johnson and then Joe Jorgensen, right? So the most anybody's ever had was Theodore Roosevelt, who was a president, right? And then all of a sudden, there's hardly anything, like 16% with Robert M. La Follette, whoever he was, and then Ross Perot, 18.9%. Let me tell you something about third-party voting. Third-party voting, I will never ever vote for a third party. Never. And people sit back and they go, but Chris, they will never win. Third parties will never win. Why? Because there's no third parties at the lower end of the spectrum. You got to get third parties in a real power broker, as a power broker at the lower end. Dog catchers, mayors, city council. Those are the third party candidates that you can grow with. Right now there's no third party. No, I shouldn't say there's none, but there's very few, and they don't carry much in the way of power outside of their little narrow area of political power. That's it. So if you vote for a third-party candidate, you're going to throw away your vote. Do not vote for a third-party candidate. A lot of people do so, and I admit I did it. In 1992, I voted for this jerk-off Ross Perot, who ended up just being basically he didn't like George H.W. Bush. That was one of the stories that went behind it, and that's the reason he did not intend on winning this. He intended on taking votes away from his, from what he and the media had depicted as an enemy, right? So he did, and the rest is history. Clinton won. Would Clinton have won had Ross Perot not been in there? Who knows, right? And same thing happened with George W. Bush won because there was a third-party candidate that pulled enough from the Democrats. So it's, and Democrats learned really hard then. And I'll tell you, if Democrats vote for third-party candidates, I'd be very, very surprised. And there are, people talk about, there's independents. Yeah, there's independents, but really, independents, a lot of them, and this is my opinion, independents are kind of, they don't want to hear all the horse poop. They're either like independent Republicans or independent Democrats, right? But they don't want to hear, they're saying if people start to, bust on them, they go, well, I'm an independent, right? But they're really not, but they just don't want to have to, they don't want to have to sit back and justify themselves in front of anybody. They just say I'm an independent, but they still vote, on party lines. So that's what they do. And to tell the truth, the way that divisiveness is in this country today, I don't blame them at all for doing that. But third-party candidates, a whole other deal. And you can see here how that situation, Status Study did a good job on this, can be some really, really interesting situations. So it goes only to 2020, but basically that's what's happening here. And again, Theodore Roosevelt, a name people knew, got 27.4% of the popular vote. 27.4% of the popular vote, electoral vote, 16.57%. That's a lot. 0% for Ross Perot. He got 18.9%, almost 20% of the popular vote, but no electoral votes, none. So that's where the big difference is on that. So, anyways, I just wanted to finish up with that, and I'm going to go ahead and summarize here in a little bit, but I just wanted to hit those main stories for you. And let me check my notebook here to make sure I'm doing what I need to do. Daily news: Italy is sending migrants to Albania. I just wanted to let you know that this is kind of interesting. So Italy here is sending. This is Albania, okay? So we talk about this is Albania here. They're sending migrants to Albania. And Albania, they're giving Albania a bit of money to be able to make that work. So what do we have? Well, we have the UK, right? The UK, they're sending the migrants all the way down here to a place called Rwanda, which is right here. Okay, Rwanda and Burundi. Rwanda. And that's been passed by the parliament. So they're going to do that. It looks like Italy got that passed, and they're going to send it to Albania. So that's what's happening there. Let's see. What else is going on? Cough analysis, right? Central route. Nope, I think that's about it. So this is... Oh, yeah. Last bit. France. France stated in a kind of an sotto voce is what they say, under voice, said that they ought to, the next step for Europe ought to be to send troops to Ukraine. And Russia said, you do that and we're going to have a nuclear war, which is a bunch of horse poop. That's not going to happen. But I mean, bottom line is Europe, you screwed up. You should have done that in the beginning. The minute they went into Ukraine, with this diplomatic horse poop, you should have sent troops immediately into Ukraine. If you'd have done that, that'd have pushed them back and that would have been it. It'd have been done. But no, you didn't do that. You let them go all the way through, almost to Kyiv. And then it was kind of like, oh my gosh, we got to, so we're going to give them a bunch of weapons, which is a bunch of poop again. So basically, France, and Germany's kind of like sitting there, well, I don't know if I want to do that, So, I mean, there's a lot of countries in here that are sitting there saying, wait, what are you saying, France? Are you saying you're going to want Europe in another war? Let me tell you something. If France wants to put troops into Ukraine, man, I would stay as far away from that as possible, because France did the same exact thing with trying to protect their colonialism with Vietnam. And you saw what happened with that, United States. Don't follow their lead. Don't do that. If the UN wants to put troops in there, the UN wants to do something, they want to get a resolution and do whatever they need to do to push these people out, like in Kuwait, yeah, that's a whole other deal. You get a coalition, you can get in there and push these Russians the heck out of there. But the bottom line on this whole thing is that, France says, yeah, let's do this. It's kind of like the individual that says, oh, yeah, let's go bust some windows in the school, and then doesn't show up. Be very careful about France. Very, very careful about that. Let's get troops in there. Let's go. You go first. So and plus, if they do that, you better believe they're going to come to the United States and say, hey, how about providing us with intel, NATO intel? Huh? How about it? Yeah, right. Read my book. Should the United States really evaluate its relationship with France? It's on Amazon. Read it. Read the history behind the France-U.S. relationships. Not a good one. And we've been taken a lot by France here. A lot. I think it's about time. France wants to put troops in there. I'd say, France, go ahead and put troops in there. Have a good time. And and let me tell you something. When they start getting their butts beat in Ukraine, then all of a sudden it's going to be a whole different deal. They're going to sit there and say, oh, please help us. And it's like, hey, you wanted troops in there. You got troops in there. United States, do not follow France's lead. Do not follow France's lead. It is too late to do that. You should have gotten with the UN, and you should have got a resolution passed, and should have told the Russians, guess what? You're going to abstain because you invaded a fellow country. You're out of here as a Security Council member. We're going to suspend you for a period of time. Passed a resolution, and then you should have kicked the Russians out of that area. That's what they should have done. They didn't do it because the UN is basically, UN stands for understanding nothing, and they do. It's unbelievable the amount of money, $18 billion a year, that the United States is putting in the UN, and they are not getting that as part of their investment. So be really, really wary about that whole thing. Thanks for watching Worldview today, and please have a great rest of the day. And remember, always try to take a perspective that takes into consideration the worldview. Take care.